Come unpack my xTool M1 with me.
In this video, we are unboxing the xTool M1 Deluxe Package and setting it up with the air assist and the riser base with the honeycomb tray. Now xTool were so generous and they sent me this machine, hence me crying in the beginning of the video. It was nicely packaged, and when you open it, you have all these inspiration photos as well. Now this is the xTool M1 Deluxe Package, and let's see what's inside. First, there are mats. Then we have premium materials box, which is a lot of blanks. It also comes with 4 risers in case you don't want to invest in the riser base. And then lastly, the RA2 Pro with its accessory kit, and this is used to engrave on tumblers. Now let's get this out of the box. Now, if you order machine only, then the items inside the machine are only the stuff that you're gonna get. So when you open the top, you'll find a thank you note. You'll also find the manual and a piece of wood and a couple blanks just for practice. Underneath that, you'll find the power cord, the USB cord, and the blade, since this is a hybrid cutting machine and a laser machine as well. You'll also find the vent and the bracket that you'll need to hook up the vent to. I really like how it's packaged, and when you remove that foam, you're going to find the prisms. These prisms are going to be used to elevate the material if you're not using the honeycomb with the riser base tray. You'll need to use these if you don't have the riser base, but I'm planning to show you how to set up your riser base at the end of this video. And now the last thing inside the machine would be 2 mats, and these might be extra if you have ordered the deluxe package. If not, then these are going to be the only mats. So now that we got everything out of the box, the first thing that you want to do is to install the vent bracket and then hook up the vent to it. You'll see the vent at the back of your machine, and you're going to have a little baggie with 4 screws, and you're going to use these to install the bracket at first. This part was straightforward. I didn't struggle with it, but I struggled with putting up the vent onto the bracket, so you might struggle with it a little bit just like I did here. So after trial and error, I think it works best if you put that metal bracket onto the hose or whatever it's called, and then put the vent on top of it and then slide that metal bracket down the vent. But for me, it was a struggle to make sure that the vent goes under the metal bracket. It might be easier for you. It just took some time from me. Now, once you are done, step number 2 is to install the blade. So the housing is already installed in the machine, so you'll need to pull it out and then get your blade to install it. Now, this is very similar to your Cricut machine if you're familiar with Cricut. So the blade is magnetic, so once you insert it, it's gonna snap right in. And after that, you're gonna insert it back into the head. Now, if you don't have a riser base, now is the time to install your prisms by laying them down inside the machine. Now, step 3 is to power your machine and get your laptop ready. xTool's software is completely free, and they have recently released it on iPad and Android. I don't have an iPad, so you might want to use that instead. I'm going to use my laptop. So you'll see me here powering my machine, and then I brought my laptop to download xTool Creative Space, which is the software that you're going to need to work with your xTool M1. So once you go to xTool's website, you'll need to download xTool Creative Space based on the operating system. I have a Windows, so that's what I downloaded. Step 4 is connecting your xTool M1 to your device. So as you can see here, I'm still downloading and installing the software on my computer. But once you are done with that, you'll need to connect your M1 to your device by either a USB or Wi-Fi connection. So at first, I used Wi-Fi connection, and when I opened xTool Creative Space, it asked me to install a drive, which I did. And once I did that, it picked up my xTool M1. But I would rather use a USB instead, and I usually now use USB when I'm doing anything on my M1. Once you are connected, the camera is going to refresh, and this is me cheering. And now you can basically make your first cut, but I'm going to show you how to install the air assist. So let's go. Now, the first thing that you need to do to install your air assist is to remove that base plate from your xTool M1. So here is where I went wrong. At first, I flipped the machine and I started removing the screws at the back of the machine, only to realize that there are screws inside the machine to the base plate as well. So as you can see, I flipped the machine and then there are a lot of screws, so I started taking out all of these screws, and then only after that I realized that the base plate is not coming off. So I had to flip the machine back and then start removing the screws that are inside the machine. I still think this was helpful though, because instead of the base plate falling down inside the machine, I had to reflip the machine, and that allowed me to remove the base plate from inside the machine, which I think is more safer. So you can do that way instead of doing the other way around. Now, another tip for when you're flipping your machine is to make sure that the laser head is tucked in at one of the corners in the direction of your flip. That way the head does not get smacked around the machine when you're flipping it. So now that we removed all the screws, you'll need to take out that base plate. The next step is to start cleaning your machine in general, as well as the laser head. I have this little vacuum that I can link in the description box down below that I use to collect some of the dust and the debris that's left out after cutting wood and stuff like that. After I vacuumed around my machine, I used a microfiber towel with isopropyl alcohol to wipe down the surfaces. But before I did that, I removed the plate so that we don't get hurt. So I started wiping down the surfaces, but you gotta be careful with the camera. And then I used the Q-tip with alcohol to clean the laser head, and I'm gonna show you how. So I sprayed one end of the Q-tip with alcohol, and then I wiped that laser head, and then with another dry Q-tip, I dried it afterwards. So you should do these cleanings regularly to maintain your machine, but now let's install our air assist. So in most cases, I think your air assist is going to come packaged separately in a separate box. And let's look at what's inside. You have a manual. There is a bunch of accessories and tools that we're going to use to install the air assist. There is also tubing for the air assist that is going to get connected between the laser head and the air assist. And then there is the air assist itself. So I don't know about you, but I like to use the manual and walk you through each step by step as we do it. Now, I had told you already the first step, which is to remove the base plate and to flip the machine. So now we're ready for the next step while installing our air assist. And the next step is to remove 2 screws and a small metal bracket that's at the top of your laser head. So let's go. So xTool already gives you a tiny screwdriver to get these 2 screws out, but I had struggled a lot with that one, so I had to use my own. This might not be the case for you, but I just wanted to let you know. So this is me fighting for my own life to get these screws out until I used my own screwdriver, but this might not be the case for you. I would suggest that after you take them out and you take out that metal bracket, that you put these screws back in so that you don't lose them. I did not do that, but I thought it might be a good idea. So I successfully took these screws out, and then the next step in xTool's manual is to remove the blade, which is too late in my opinion, because if the blade had been there the whole time, I might have gotten hurt. So I would suggest that the first thing that you do is to take out the blade and then take out these 2 screws and this little metal back. Now the third step is to get your tweezers out and then insert it into the 2 tiny holes that are in your laser module. And then you'll need to rotate it to unscrew this thing that's keeping the laser lens in place. And once you feel like you've unscrewed it, just grab onto it with the tweezers and take it out. I took this out and I put it in one of the foam slots that was in the box. And now we are ready for step number 4. We will need to install a different round metal part instead of the one that was on top of the laser lens. So if you go back to the air assist accessories, you're going to find that in the box. Now take that one out and you'll need to screw that back in there on top of the laser lens. Now for that one, you can screw it back inside with your hands. You don't need a tweezer or anything for that. But for this part, it has tiny rubber ends on both sides to guarantee that you install it parallel to the laser head. And I'll show you that in a second. So if you go back to the manual, you're going to see the direction that it should be installed with. But if it's not too tight, I used one of the rubber ends that was in the box to get a tight fit for that part. So in my case, after I installed it to be parallel, it wasn't as tight as I like it to be. So I went back to the box and I got one of these rubber thingies. So professional, right? And then I put it inside my part and then I put it back inside on top of the laser lens, and that worked for me. But that might not be the case for you, but I just wanted to let you know. Now that that's in place, step number 5 is to go back to that foam box and get that hose or that little part. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. And this is magnetic, so it's going to snap right on top of that part that we just installed. Now, step number 5, I think we're at step number 5, right? Is to get your tubing out and then insert that onto the hose that we just installed. So the tubing with the white marks is the one that's going to go inside your laser head, and then it's going to go around your machine and then outside of the machine to the air assist. This is the general idea, okay? So you're going to take the end that has the white mark, insert it into the hose that's attached to your laser head, and now is the time to flip back your machine. As you can see here in the instruction, that's our next step. So I'm going to flip my machine, and after that it's going to be the time to install all these adhesive tube holders, and these are going to be installed across the perimeter of your M1, and these are going to hold the tubing all across and then out of the machine. You'll find 3 adhesive ones of the same size, the big ones, and then a small one, and then a one that's going to be attached to the side of our laser head to hold that tubing upside. So the instructions are going to tell you where to adhere each one of these holders, but I'm going to show you here as well. But my tip is to wipe down all that perimeter with isopropyl alcohol before sticking them. This is roughly shows you where you're going to stick each one of these. And once you finish adhering these around the perimeter of your machine, you'll find a weird looking one with adhesive backing as well. And we're going to need that to stick it to the side of our laser head module. This was hard to film, but I was trying to show you where to stick that adhesive backing. And the goal to this part is to get that tubing up so that we can pass it around the perimeter. But of course, you need to wipe that down with some alcohol first before you stick that thing. And now we're very close to be done. You're going to need to grab that tubing and insert it inside that little bracket. And like I mentioned, this is going to take the tubing up so that we can rotate it around the perimeter and then get it out of the machine to the air assist. So now I'm going to show you real quick how to run that tubing around the perimeter of your xTool M1. And at first I thought that I just need to move the laser head around the machine in all directions to make sure that the laser head has enough tubing to move freely when it's cutting a job. But after going back to the instructions, I realized that these white markings have a reason. One white marker should be at the end of that holder, and then the other one should be at where the tubing is coming out of the laser head up. So if you go back to the instructions right here, you're going to see that it tells you where these white markings should be at. So I had to go back in there and fix it up a little bit to make sure that it looks correctly. So now would be the time to get the rest of the tubing out of the machine and start hooking it up to your air assist. But before doing that, I'm going to set up my riser base first, since the riser base has a dedicated hole for the tubing to go through to the outside of the machine. If you don't have a riser base, then feel free to skip to 14-20 seconds. The riser base comes with a honeycomb tray. When you open the box, there is a manual and there is an acrylic ruler that you're going to use if you want to measure the focal length between your lens and the item that you're engraving or cutting. This one was very well packed as well, and once you remove that foam, you're going to find your honeycomb tray, and underneath the honeycomb tray, you're going to find 2 big white parts, which would then be the right and left sides of your riser base. And here you might be able to see the hole that we're going to use to insert the tubing of the air assist to pass through outside of the machine. So with the riser base, it's a pretty simple setup. You'll need to get these white parts outside of the box, and now these are going to be the sides of your riser base. So you need to make sure that the writing alpha, beta, gamma are on the front facing side of the machine. Then you're going to get out these acrylic boards. These are going to be used as the back drawer and the front drawer of the machine. So once you take off all that masking, you're going to need to insert one at the back and one at the front. And there is nothing that's holding all 4 parts together but the weight of the machine when you lay it on top of this. So now that you set up your riser base, now is the time to put your machine on top of this, and then you're going to need to pass the tubing through that hole outside of the machine to go through the air assist, and that will be basically it. So that's what I did here, and after doing that, the last step is to insert this tiny part or hose into the air assist, and then we're going to use that tubing to insert into it. So we're going to go back to our foam box and we're going to get this part out of it to insert it into our air assist. As you can see here, my machine is already on the riser base, and now I'm inserting these 2 thingies onto my air assist, and that way I'll be able to put the tubing back into that hose into the air assist. I put the air assist right next to my machine. And now is the time to insert the tubing that's coming out of the machine into the air assist, and voila, we're done. I know I told you we're done, but there is a tiny, teeny step left, which is to adhere one of these adhesive thingies onto the machine, and this is going to be used to hold the air assist in case you don't want to use it for a cut or something. I think I'm going to keep my air assist attached to my laser head all the time, but it's nice to have a holder for it in case I don't want to use it. And that's it. Now you can put the base plate back into your machine at the very last level of the riser base. And then put the honeycomb tray at the very top level of your riser base. And then you're going to slide each acrylic drawer, one at the front and one at the back, but you just got to make sure that the handle is at the bottom. And there you have it. Now you have your M1 set up with an air assist and a riser base with a honeycomb tray. Now like this video and don't forget to subscribe and check out the description box for a code to save on your xTool purchase.